And good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on your MTN statewide news on this Friday. I'm Andrea Lutz. A University of Montana Grizz basketball player who's been suspended and arrested for felony strangulation is expected in court today to face charges. 20-year-old Nassim McKenna Gaskin is facing charges of felony strangulation. Officers responded to a woman at a Missoula motel reporting Gaskin assaulted her. He's from Oakland, California, and sat out last season due to transfer rules. University athletic officials say they're aware of the incident and do not condone the behavior. Gaskin has been immediately suspended from all athletic-related activities. A discussion is ongoing in the city of Helena when it comes to policies and procedures with the police department. The city commission began evaluating the Helena police's current practices in June. The commission also examining the position of the school resource officer. That position ultimately was voted to be continued to be funded, but commission members plan to discuss police officer onboarding, training, and education policies for review. This afternoon, a grass fire that spread across Mount Sentinel and forced the closure of the popular M Trail is now contained. However, the public is being asked to stay away as fire crews investigate. The University of Montana Police Department issued an alert this morning saying the M Trail has been reopened. However, the rest of Mount Sentinel remains closed due to fire mop-up operations. Last night was quite a show as emergency crews started battling that fire around 6 p.m. Helicopters were seen making bucket drops on the fire, which is mostly burning in grass. The fire started to burn right behind the Elliott Village Apartments, east of the University Golf Course and the softball complex. The Bear Creek fire burning near Dillon continues to grow in size. The fire now estimated at 8,500 acres. It grew roughly 1,000 acres in the last 24 hours after the size was mapped by an infrared flight overnight. The fire is burning in the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest. It was started by lightning. Containment is at just 20%. The most active parts of the fire are at the north and northwest flanks. A lot of fire activity in Montana. Let's check in with Ed McIntosh for a look at the weather scene.
Yeah, last evening we were concerned about the start of fires east of the divide as well. You saw a lot of that towards western Montana, but we ended up with some hail, especially around the Great Falls area, and then strong winds across the eastern plains. How about Jordan? 67-mile-per-hour wind gusts and geyser between Great Falls and Billings, up to 1-inch hail yesterday. Now, as we get into the weekend, we get a little break today, but by tomorrow afternoon, we could be looking at record-setting temperatures through eastern Montana and northern Wyoming, and another shot of hot air by the time we get into Monday, with readings again close to record high readings. In between, we have some ups and downs in the temperatures, and finally, a downward trend. We'll talk about that in a few minutes.
As firefighters from the United States battle dangerous wildfires, they are faced with another risk this year: COVID-19. An outbreak through a camp could have a ripple effect and put the crew's mission in jeopardy. So fire camps are actively taking measures to slow any spread that may sideline their progress. Officials say even the smoke in the air, which makes breathing already hard, can make firefighters more susceptible to COVID. At the Bear Creek Fire Camp, they have supplies ready to go, even an isolation tent set up to test sick firefighters.
This year, being in a COVID environment, we have quite a lot of exposure equipment and hand sanitizers and wipes, and we're just working to keep a healthy environment and keep the firefighters healthy and working.
There's another surge on COVID-19 cases in Montana to tell you about today, another 142 new cases. However, there are no new deaths being reported in Montana. Yellowstone County has 51 new cases, bringing the county's overall number of active cases to 677. Statewide, our total is over 6,200 cases. Nursing homes with high COVID infection rates may not have the resources they need to rebound from the pandemic. A new study says federal data found no improvement from May to July in staffing levels or PPE. 1 in 5 nursing homes are said to be severely struggling. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid responded to the study, saying the Trump administration provided nursing homes the tools they need to stop the virus. But it's up to each individual facility to implement them. Montana Secretary of State Corey Stapleton wants the United States Supreme Court to intervene in whether the Green Party should be allowed on the general election ballot. It comes after the Montana Supreme Court and a federal judge rejected appeals to keep the party on the ballot. The Green Party qualified for the ballot in March by petition, but it was later revealed the Montana Republican Party spent about $100,000 on the effort. If the Supreme Court was to take up the case, it's not clear what a ruling would mean for the ballots, as Montana ballots must already be certified. Republican candidate for governor Greg Gianforte is throwing another $1 million of his own money into the campaign coffers. Gianforte has now sunk $2.5 million of his own wealth into the campaign for governor. That's about what he's received from donors. His opponent, Democrat Mike Cooney, has raised $725,000 over the last 2 months compared to Gianforte's $580,000. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy is set to testify in front of the Senate as he faces increasing backlash for cuts to the Postal Service. A Senate committee will be questioning him about the changes he was trying to implement right before millions of Americans get ready to cast their vote through the mail. The Republican chairman of the committee plans to testify in his behalf and favor and dismiss any claims that he had a political narrative to sabotage the election. President Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, was arrested in connection with an alleged fundraising scheme for a border wall. According to the indictment, Bannon and 3 others orchestrated a scheme in 2018 to defraud hundreds of thousands of donors in connection with an online crowdfunding campaign called We Build the Wall. After pleading not guilty in Manhattan federal court, Bannon was released from jail on a $5 million bail. After years of criticism, Kansas City Chiefs fans will no longer be allowed to wear Native American-themed face paint or headdresses at Arrowhead Stadium. The team says there may be more policy changes as it continues having meaningful conversations with Indigenous leaders. It comes after the NFL's Washington franchise announced it's retiring the logo. The new policies go into effect immediately. We do have more news on this Friday version of the noon news, including this: the fair underway in Flathead County, but numbers appear to be down. So we're going to hear from organizers about their mission to keep the fun going despite COVID-19. But first, Ed is up next with a look at that statewide weather forecast.
Plains, and we're taking a few degrees off the readings that we saw yesterday, despite plenty of sunshine, generally a clear sky, and light winds, other than a bit of a breeze that's developed here across areas closer to the Fort Peck region that could cause some choppy waters across the water there today, but less than 10 miles an hour in most locations. The relative humidity numbers are starting to drop a bit, but not as much as yesterday. We saw a lot of readings in the 20s and 30s here as of this hour, as we're starting to see a little more moisture start to mix into the mid and upper atmosphere as those showers and thunderstorms moved through last night. Now, we do have some firework concerns tomorrow in north central Montana and the southwest portion of the state with a fire weather watch into effect. But for today, poor air quality through portions of southern Idaho and then also through areas of eastern Wyoming into South Dakota, where the smoke has been rather heavy. And we do have some smoke across much of the region. High pressure ridge is still holding in all that warm air, but a trough of low pressure does promise to bring in a change as we start getting into the next few days. So let's take a look and see where the smoke has been. It's all coming from these wildfires through California, continuing to streak into Wyoming, the southern half of Montana. You can see a lot of smoke across the eastern plains, and here's where we've had those smoke problems over to Wyoming into South Dakota as well. So while the smoke is still there, most of it's staying fairly high off the surface, and we don't have a lot of concerns about air quality for respiratory problems in the immediate short term. But as we take it through time, we'll start to see some clearing here as we get through the day today, heading into this evening. At least a little break in the cloud is that are created by the smoke, and then more of that smoky haze will start to move in over the course of the weekend. You can see particularly through southern Montana and northern Wyoming. So Most all of the smoke is coming out of those California wildfires. Sunshine, highs today will be mainly into the mid-80s to mid-90s, a pretty dry forecast. And while some strong storms could develop off into the Dakotas, we're left with a quieter weather pattern, a little breezy in southeastern Montana, and it does create some fire weather concerns. This cold front coming through tomorrow will trip off some winds and therefore those wildfire concerns, but really push the temperatures up once we start getting into the eastern plains, and we could be looking at perhaps some record-setting highs. Temperatures 85 to 95 again on Sunday, so the temperatures press back down, but the promise of hotter temperatures again on Monday is still looming. Temperatures today will be mainly into the 80s and 90s across the state, generally with sunshine and generally light winds. Temperatures overnight into the 50s to low 60s, pretty close to where the readings were first thing tomorrow. And then daytime highs, especially hot tomorrow with some of that wind as we start looking into areas of central Montana, especially as we get up into the north central portion of the state and southwest Montana. Kalispell, Missoula, looking at temperatures mainly into the 80s over the course of the next few days. Some low 90s around Missoula. Looking at temperatures around the Great Falls and Helena area to be mainly into the upper 80s to 90s over the course of the next couple of afternoons. The 5-day forecast shows a little downturn by the time we start getting in towards Wednesday. For Butte and Bozeman, looking at temperatures to be into the upper 80s to low 90s pretty consistently. It gets a little cooler for you around Butte and Bozeman with the temperatures dropping off towards Tuesday and Wednesday, and the heat is really on across the eastern plains. Glendive and Billings could be close to record high temperatures on Saturday and again Monday. There's a look at the weather. Back to you, Andrea.
Thanks, Ed. Vendors from the Northwest Montana Fair in Kalispell are feeling the pressure from a decline in attendance this year. MTN's Marin Sue explains how coronavirus is affecting sales.
Businesses and nonprofits are struggling to make money this year at the Northwest Montana Fair because of decreased numbers because of coronavirus concerns.
50% less people this year, at least for as far as yesterday goes. So, and it's a lot quieter without the carnival and the midway here.
Arthur Woolley, president of the Flathead Marines, says the fair is their second highest fundraiser, and this decrease in food sales affects them. Tightening their budget, Woolley says they won't be able to give as much back to events like Toys for Tots.
Last year we donated about $1,500 worth of toys. This year we may only need to do about $1,000 worth of toys.
Fairgrounds manager Mark Campbell confirms participation is down.
We were down about 40%. And had a small turnout.
Owner-operator of D&T Barbecue David Wickwire says this year his business was cut by a third.
The fair is where we make our bulk to get through the winter, because winters are tough in Montana.
Campbell says the fairgrounds requires masks upon entry, but says staff will enforce masks inside too.
We found ourselves short-staffed yesterday. We also found ourselves needing some more training because this is all brand new to many of us, and especially our gate people.
Campbell says anyone needing work should apply at the fair to help with their staffing shortage.
Fairgrounds manager Mark Campbell says masks are required at this year's fair due to Governor Bullock's mask mandate, and the fair lasts until August 23rd. In Kalispell, Marin Sue, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Marin. And as she said, it will go until about the end of August. So we'll see how they do at the end of the fair. All right, get ready to paint the town this weekend because Arts Fest is about to begin. It's the second annual Arts Festival, but with a COVID-friendly twist. All of it kicking off in Great Falls. In addition to viewing art by professionals, you can put your mark on the local Great Falls downtown by participating in 3 activities: an artist-guided mural in front of Miss Linda's dance studio, chalk art at the parking lot at First Avenue North, or you can spray paint animal tracks behind Dragonfly Goods. Arts Fest begins Saturday and it will go through the entire weekend. Your latest Ag News is coming up next with Russell Nemens.
Here's your Farm and Ranch report from the Montana Ag Network.
Hi everybody, it's time for your Farm and Ranch news. Well, with strict social distancing measures in place, the Montana Stock Growers Association this week was able to have their annual mid-year meeting in Billings. Now, one of those in attendance was Tanner Beamer, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association's Director of Government Policy and Market Regulatory Policy. And Tanner, weather and markets are still the 2 most important things to farmers and ranchers, not just here in this region, but across the nation. And I bet in some of your travels, especially out here to the west this summer, you've been getting an earful about the recent cattle markets.
Yeah, absolutely. The markets definitely took a bit of a dip during COVID-19 as we had some packing capacity issues at the packer level, and it's trickled all the way back through the supply chain, and we are fortunately starting to see prices start to rebound a little bit. We've got a lot of ground to make up still, but I was down at the Superior sale on Monday down in Sheridan. Some of those wean calves and calves on cows are performing really well. Some of these droughts in part of the country, especially on this side of Montana, where it's been really dry, you got a hopper problem. Some of those base weights kept getting adjusted downward, but overall I think people are optimistic about the prices that are being brought in right now, and we're hopeful we can continue to make some upward momentum here.
Yeah, absolutely. It is good to see this cattle market find a little bit of strength, especially as we wind summer down and head into that busy fall marketing season in the beef cattle industry. Tanner, just a few weeks ago, the NCBA had its summer business meeting down in Denver, and the cattle market was by far one of the bigger issues you talked about this year down there, too.
You bet. The Live Cattle Marketing Committee, which I staff, we met for 6 hours. We were scheduled for 2 because, this is the most important issue in the industry right now. We want to make sure that we're getting fair markets. We want to make sure that that's operating in a transparent way, and there were a lot of opinions on how to get there, a lot of emotions at times, but at the end of the day we came out of there with a unanimous policy that everybody could get behind, and so I think that was a win, and it really shows the true strength of the grassroots when they get together and hash some of these issues out.
All right, well, stay with us. We're going to talk some more with the NCBA's Tanner Beamer right after this. Today with the NCBA's Director of Government Affairs and Market Regulatory Policy, Tanner Beamer. Caught up with Tanner here in Billings at the Montana Stock Growers Association's mid-year meeting, talking about by far one of the biggest issues in the beef cattle industry here of late, and that's markets. And when we talk about NCBA policy and the cattle markets, what does policy look like for NCBA?
Sure. So they actually made some amendments to our existing fed cattle price discovery policy. And like I said, after 6 hours with various amendments that, were adopted somewhere and some weren't, what we came out of there was direction to form a subgroup in our existing live cattle marketing working group to identify some of these regional triggers for what is sufficient negotiated trade using research that's funded and directed by NCBA. We put together a team of ag economists led by Dr. Darrell Peel at Oklahoma State University. He's got 7 other ag economists on that group with him that are helping to make sure that we have the best research available, and then that subgroup of producers will take that research and those recommendations and give us a path forward on the lobby side.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, even if it was just for a few days this week here in Montana, Tanner.
Always glad to be in the Treasure State.
All right, again, the NCBA's Tanner Beamer. That's a look at your farm and ranch news. Have a great day.
Thanks, Russell. So blink and you'll miss it. A lightning-fast, record-breaking electric ice cream truck. A British daredevil spent 2 years modifying an ice cream truck, turning it into an electric and shock by the world-breaking Guinness World Record vehicle. But the not-so-rocky road of a UK airfield, that's where he tested it out, right there. It can go up to about 74 miles per hour. But we know what you're thinking. That's a record. That's a pretty good record considering it's an ice cream van that's known for operating usually at a standstill. When you get ice cream, they're usually stopped. Well, the ice cream van is also low on admissions because, again, it's electric. I don't know, Ed, pretty fancy, but 74 miles an hour?
I'm more interested in ice cream trucks when they're standing still right in front of my house.
How do you get the ice cream if it's going so fast?
That's true.
I don't know.
Slow down. Give us some ice cream. Can you imagine the music in the ice cream truck? How fast it's got to be going at 74 miles an hour? Let's take a look across the state. We've got smoke in much of the region, at least a bit. We're generally in the good conditions, a little bit of an unhealthy air quality around West Yellowstone today. Temperatures are going to be fairly mild, mainly looking at 80s to mid 90s for the daytime highs today. But over the course of the next couple of days, we're going to see a jump in some of the readings, especially once we get into central and western Montana. High temperatures moving up to the 80s, 90s during the afternoons, mainly 50s and 60s for the overnight lows. A little cooler around Butte. That's no big surprise. But the Eastern Plains could see some record setters.
Thanks for joining us and have a great weekend.